The mining station on Kepler 442b wasn't supposed to be operational anymore. Marcus Chen had been sent to strip the last valuable equipment before corporate abandoned the site completely. The red dwarf sun cast everything in perpetual amber twilight, and the wind howled through the canyon where the facility sat like a forgotten metal skeleton. He was loading the final cargo containers when he heard it. A sound that shouldn't exist on this barren rock. A cry, high-pitched and desperate, cutting through the wind like a knife through silk. Marcus stopped, his gloved hand hovering over the container seal. The sound came again, weaker this time. He turned slowly, scanning the rocky outcroppings that surrounded the station. Nothing moved except the dust devils dancing across the canyon floor. Then he saw her. She was massive, even collapsed among the boulders as she was. Her scales were pure white, gleaming like fresh snow against the rust-colored rocks. Wings, or what remained of them, spread broken and twisted behind her body. They had been magnificent once, translucent membranes stretched between bone-white spars that could have spanned 30 meters. Now they hung in tatters, shredded by what looked like weapons fire. Marcus had seen a lot of alien species in his 15 years working the outer colonies. The galaxy was full of strange life, but he had never seen anything like her. She was reptilian, yes, but there was something else. An elegance to her form despite the wounds. Intelligence in those eyes that tracked his approach. Those eyes. They were the color of pale rubies, pink with flecks of red, and they watched him with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. He should have left. Protocol was clear. Unknown xenobiology, possible contamination risk, definitely not his problem. His shuttle could be loaded in an hour, and he could be off this rock before sunset. Corporate wouldn't care. Corporate never cared about anything except the bottom line. But those eyes held him frozen. She made another sound, softer now. Her head, elegant and terrible with horns that curved back like a crown, turned slightly. She was trying to show him something. Marcus took a careful step forward, then another. His heart hammered against his ribs. The creature was clearly injured, probably dying, but she could still kill him with one swipe of those claws. Each one was as long as his forearm, black as space and twice as sharp. Then he saw them. Two smaller forms huddled against her belly, partially hidden by her foreleg. They were miniature versions of her, no bigger than large dogs, their scales the same impossible white. One lifted its head as Marcus approached, and he saw it had the same pink eyes as its mother. The little one made a sound, a chirp that turned into a weak warble. The mother shifted, a movement that brought a hiss of pain from deep in her chest. She was trying to cover her young, to protect them even in her broken state, but she was too weak. Her body shuddered with the effort, and a dark fluid that might have been blood seeped from wounds Marcus could now see crisscrossing her flanks. Marcus stopped 10 feet away, his mind racing. The wounds were recent, maybe a few hours old. Weapons fire, definitely. The kind of heavy ordnance used by pirate raiders or corporate security forces. Someone had shot her down and left her to die. He looked at the sky, suddenly understanding. There had been reports of raiders in this sector. Ships going missing. The corporate overseer had mentioned it in his last briefing, warned Marcus to be careful. But they hadn't mentioned this. They hadn't mentioned someone was hunting intelligent species. The mother dragon watched him, her breathing labored. She was dying. Marcus could see it in the way her scales had lost their luster, in the slight glaze creeping over those remarkable eyes. But she wasn't afraid for herself. Every ounce of her remaining strength was focused on her young. One of the little ones crept forward, mewling. It stumbled, its own tiny wings dragging uselessly. It had been injured too, though not as severely as its mother. The second baby stayed pressed against its mother's belly, trembling. Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He raised his hand slowly, palms out, universal gesture of peace. Then he tapped his comm unit, accessing the station's medical bay inventory. It wasn't much, the facility had been stripped of most supplies, but there might be something. Coagulants, sterilizers, maybe even a tissue regenerator if he was lucky. The dragon mother's eyes followed his every movement. She made a low sound, almost a growl, when he started to move toward the station entrance. But she was too weak to stop him, and some part of her seemed to understand his intent. Marcus ran. He burst through the station's airlock and sprinted down corridors he had walked through 100 times in the past week. The medical bay was in the north wing, past the abandoned crew quarters and the gutted cafeteria. His boots rang on metal grating, echoing in the empty halls. The medical bay had been ransacked, but not completely. Cabinets hung open, their contents scattered. Marcus grabbed everything he could carry: trauma packs, coagulant foam, a portable scanner, water pouches, even some expired ration bars. He found the tissue regenerator, an old model but functional, and added it to his pile. He was heading back when he heard the sound. A deeper roar, full of rage and pain, coming from outside. Then the higher-pitched cries of the young. Marcus dropped everything except the medical supplies he had clutched in his arms and ran faster than he thought possible. He cleared the airlock, stumbled into the amber twilight, and saw the mother dragon had somehow pulled herself upright. She swayed on her legs, massive head lowered, placing herself between her babies and something Marcus couldn't yet see. Then he heard the engines. A ship rose from behind the far canyon wall, small and mean-looking. A hunter's ship. Its weapons ports glowed with ready charge, and Marcus saw the scorch marks along its hull that spoke of numerous battles. This wasn't a corporate ship. This was something worse, a poacher. The ship's spotlight locked onto the white dragon, and Marcus heard a voice boom across the canyon through external speakers. "Finally tracked you down, snowworm. Thought you could hide on this dead rock?" The voice was male, human, speaking standard with a thick asteroid belt accent. "Your hide will fetch a fortune on the collector markets. Those babies, too. Albino dragons, rarer than rare." The mother dragon roared, a sound of pure defiance that shook Marcus to his bones. But she couldn't fight. She could barely stand. Her wings hung useless, her blood darkened the rocks beneath her. The ship's weapons powered up with a distinctive whine. Marcus looked at the supplies in his arms. Looked at the dying dragon protecting her young. Looked at the poacher ship preparing to finish its hunt. Then he looked at his own shuttle sitting fueled and ready just 50 meters away. At the heavy mining equipment still attached to its loading arms. At the industrial plasma cutter he had used just this morning to slice through reinforced bulkheads. He made another decision, one that protocol definitely didn't cover, one that would probably get him killed. But those pink eyes had begged him, and Marcus Chen had never been good at walking away. Marcus sprinted toward his shuttle, supplies clutched against his chest. Behind him, the poacher's voice echoed through the canyon again, laughing now. The sound made Marcus's skin crawl. "What's this? Got a witness? Hey, little salvager, you best get in your boat and fly away. This doesn't concern you." Marcus didn't answer. He reached his shuttle and slapped the cargo door release. The heavy door hissed open, and he threw the medical supplies into the first storage locker. His hands shook as he climbed into the cockpit, but his mind was crystal clear. The mining shuttle wasn't a warship. It was a converted hauler with thick armor meant to handle asteroid debris, not combat. But it had tools, powerful tools designed to cut through solid rock and metal, tools that could be weaponized if someone was desperate enough, and Marcus was definitely desperate enough. He powered up the engines, and the shuttle vibrated to life beneath him. The poacher ship was hovering closer to the dragon now, weapons still charged. Through his viewport, Marcus could see the mother dragon swaying, barely conscious, but still standing between the hunter and her babies. Marcus grabbed the controls for the industrial plasma cutter mounted on the shuttle's loading arm. It was designed to slice through mining equipment and station bulkheads from a distance, maximum range of about 200 meters. The poacher ship was maybe 300 meters away. He would have to get closer. Marcus pushed the throttle forward, and the shuttle lurched into the air. It wasn't graceful. Mining shuttles never were. But it was fast enough the poacher noticed immediately. The ship pivoted, and Marcus found himself staring down the business end of military-grade weapons. His shuttle's threat warning system screamed at him, painting the cockpit red with alert lights. "Last warning, salvager. Turn around or I'll add your hull to my collection." Marcus's answer was to angle his shuttle between the poacher and the dragons. He maxed the throttle, closing the distance. 250 meters. 220. Warning klaxons blared in his ears. The poacher fired. Marcus jerked the controls hard right. The energy bolt sizzled past his port side, close enough that he felt the shuttle shudder from the near miss. His heart hammered. He wasn't a pilot. He was a salvage tech. But he was all these dragons had. "You're dead, fool." The poacher's voice had lost its amusement. Now it was just angry. 180 meters. Marcus locked the plasma cutter onto the poacher ship and fired. The cutting beam lanced out, blue-white and searingly bright. It caught the poacher ship along its starboard side, slicing through hull plating like it was paper. The ship lurched, trailing sparks and venting atmosphere. Marcus heard cursing through the open comm channel. But the poacher wasn't done. The ship spun, bringing its weapons to bear again. This pilot knew how to fight, and Marcus had just made him very angry. 2 more shots. Marcus dodged the first, but the second clipped his aft section. His shuttle's warning systems went from screaming to absolutely hysterical. Hull breach in cargo bay 2. Fire suppression system activated. Starboard engine running at 60%. Marcus gritted his teeth and fired the plasma cutter again. This time the beam caught the poacher's engine cowling. The enemy ship bucked like a wounded animal, its power fluctuating. Marcus could see scorch marks spreading across its hull. "You're going to pay for that." The poacher's ship dove, trying to get beneath Marcus's firing angle. Marcus tried to follow, but his damaged shuttle responded sluggishly. The poacher came up on his blind spot and fired 3 quick shots. 1 missed. 2 hit. Marcus's world became fire and alarms. His main console exploded in a shower of sparks. The cockpit filled with smoke. He felt the shuttle spinning, the controls fighting him, gravity pulling wrong as they tumbled toward the canyon floor. Through the chaos, Marcus saw the poacher ship lining up for a killing shot. This was it. He had tried, failed but tried. At least the dragons might have time to run while the poacher finished him off. Then something massive filled his viewport. White scales. Pink eyes blazing with fury. The mother dragon had launched herself into the air on her shattered wings, pulled aloft by sheer willpower and rage. She was magnificent and terrible, a creature of legends painted against the amber sky. She crashed into the poacher ship like a meteor. Her claws, those long black talons, punched through the hull. Her jaws, filled with teeth like swords, clamped down on the engine section. The poacher ship's weapons fired wildly, stitching the sky with energy bolts that went nowhere. The pilot was screaming now, no longer threatening but terrified. The dragon twisted, and Marcus heard the shriek of tearing metal even over his own shuttle's alarms. She ripped the engine clean off the poacher's ship. The craft spun out of control, trailing fire and debris, and slammed into the canyon wall. The explosion lit up the twilight like a small sun. The mother dragon fell. She had used everything she had left for that one attack. Now she plummeted, her broken wings unable to catch the air. Marcus watched in horror as she dropped toward the rocks below, toward her children who cried out in fear and distress. His shuttle was dying too, but Marcus still had minimal control. He angled toward the falling dragon, pushing his damaged engines past every safety limit. Warning lights he didn't even know existed lit up his console. He couldn't catch her. She was too massive. But maybe, just maybe, he could soften her landing. Marcus triggered the emergency cargo netting designed to catch tumbling asteroids. It deployed below his shuttle, spreading wide. The dragon hit it with tremendous force. The netting stretched further, the shuttle's frame groaning under the strain. For a moment, Marcus thought everything would tear apart. Then the netting held. The dragon swung beneath his shuttle like a pendulum, and Marcus fought to control their descent. They were still falling, but slower now. He aimed for the flattest patch of ground he could find, near where the 2 baby dragons huddled. They hit hard. The shuttle's landing struts buckled. Metal screamed. The cockpit window cracked. Marcus's head bounced off the console despite his restraints, and stars exploded across his vision. When the world stopped spinning, he tasted blood and smelled smoke. His shuttle was completely dead, every system showing red or black. But they were on the ground. They were alive. Marcus unbuckled with shaking hands and stumbled toward the cargo bay. He had to check on the dragon. Had to see if she had survived the fall. The cargo bay door was jammed. Marcus kicked it once, twice, 3 times. It finally groaned open. The mother dragon lay in the cargo netting, barely breathing. Her white scales were dulled with dust and blood, but her eyes, those incredible pink eyes, were open. They found Marcus and held him. The 2 baby dragons had scrambled over, crying and nuzzling their mother. She made a weak sound, trying to comfort them. Marcus grabbed the medical supplies he had thrown into the storage locker. His own blood dripped from a cut above his eye, but he ignored it. He stumbled over to the dragon, and this time she didn't growl when he approached. He started with the coagulant foam, spraying it on the worst wounds. The dragon flinched but didn't pull away. She understood somehow that he was trying to help. "Stay still," Marcus whispered, knowing she probably couldn't understand his words but hoping his tone conveyed his meaning. "Just stay still. I've got you." He worked frantically, using everything in his limited medical kit. The tissue regenerator helped, but these wounds were severe. He needed proper equipment, a real medical facility. All he had was expired first aid supplies. In desperation, one of the baby dragons tugged at his pant leg with its tiny claws. When Marcus looked down, it chirped at him and then went to its sibling, nudging the other baby toward Marcus. The second little one was injured too, a deep gash along its side. Marcus's heart broke. They were asking for help, trusting him. He spent the next hour working on all three dragons, moving between them, doing everything he could. The sun crept lower, casting longer shadows across the canyon. The wreckage of the poacher ship still burned in the distance, black smoke rising into the amber sky. Finally, Marcus sat back, exhausted. His supplies were gone. His shuttle was destroyed, but the dragons were stable. For now. The mother dragon lifted her head slightly. Her eyes met Marcus's again, and he saw something in them he hadn't seen before. Gratitude, understanding, and something else. A question: why? Why had he risked everything for strangers, for aliens he had never seen before? Marcus didn't have a good answer. He just knew he couldn't have done anything else. The mother dragon made a soft sound, almost like a purr. Then, with tremendous effort, she stretched out her neck and gently touched her snout to Marcus's hand. The gesture was so tender, so deliberately careful, that Marcus felt tears spring to his eyes. He reached up and laid his hand on her scaled head between her elegant horns. "You're welcome," he whispered. The amber sun finally dipped below the canyon rim, plunging them into darkness. Marcus sat with his back against the broken shuttle, watching the stars emerge in the alien sky. The two baby dragons had curled up against his sides, using him like a heat source. Their mother lay a few feet away, her breathing steadier now but still labored. Marcus's emergency beacon was fried along with everything else in the shuttle. His comm unit had limited range, not enough to reach the nearest station, which was 3 days away by ship. They were stranded and nobody knew where they were. Corporate would eventually send someone to investigate when he didn't check in, but that could take weeks. He looked at his supplies. Some water, a few ration bars. The medical kit was empty. The shuttle's recyclers were offline, so no fresh water or air filtration. They had maybe 3 days before things got desperate. One of the baby dragons, the one with a notch in its ear that Marcus was starting to think of as Notch, stirred against him. The little creature looked up with those pink eyes and made a questioning sound. It was cold now that night had fallen, and the babies were shivering. Marcus stood carefully and climbed back into the shuttle wreckage. There had to be something useful left. He found emergency blankets in a survival locker, thermal sheets designed to retain body heat. He brought them out and spread them over the baby dragons. They chirped happily and snuggled deeper into the silvery material. The mother dragon watched this with an expression Marcus was learning to read. Relief, trust, but also worry. She knew they were in trouble. Marcus tried to sleep, huddled in his jacket with one baby dragon on either side of him. The cold seeped through the thermal blankets, and every sound made him jerk awake. Were there more poachers? Other predators? He had his salvage tools, a plasma torch, and a pry bar. But against serious threats, they were useless. Something warm brushed against his back. Marcus turned to find the mother dragon had dragged herself closer, positioning her bulk to shield him and her babies from the wind. Her body heat radiated through her scales, turning their little hollow into something almost comfortable. Marcus reached back and touched her side gently. "Thank you," she rumbled, a sound he felt more than heard. Then, to his surprise, she began to make other sounds. Deliberate, patterned sounds. She was trying to communicate. Marcus listened, fascinated. The sounds formed rhythms almost like words. He didn't understand them, but he recognized intelligence behind them. She was telling him something. Her name, maybe? Her story? He wished he had his translation software. But that had been in the shuttle's main computer, which was now a melted pile of slag. So instead, he talked back to her in standard, keeping his voice low and soothing. "My name is Marcus Chen. I'm from Earth, though I left there 15 years ago. Never been back. I work salvage mostly, cleaning up the messes corporate leaves behind." He laughed softly, bitterly. "I was supposed to strip this station and move on. Simple job. In and out." The dragon rumbled again, her eyes half closed but focused on him. "I guess I'm not great at following simple plans." Marcus continued. My supervisor always said I got too involved, that I should just do the job and not ask questions, but I don't know. I see someone who needs help and I can't just walk away, even when I should. One of the babies, the one Marcus had mentally named Tiny, despite being the size of a large dog, made a sleepy chirping sound. Yeah, especially when there are kids involved, Marcus said, stroking Tiny's head. The scales felt warm and smooth under his palm. No kid should suffer because the adults are too busy being greedy. The mother dragon made a longer series of sounds, more complex. Marcus heard sadness in them and loss. He wondered where she had come from, why she had been running with two babies. Had someone killed her mate? Her colony? I'm sorry, Marcus whispered. For whatever happened to you, for whoever hurt you, they were wrong. You're not a commodity. You're a person. Maybe not human, but a person. The dragon's eyes opened wider. She stared at him for a long moment, and Marcus had the distinct impression she understood more than he realized. Then she made a sound that could only be described as grateful, and carefully, gently, wrapped one wing around him and her babies. Marcus slept, protected by a creature that shouldn't exist, on a world that nobody cared about, having thrown away his career and possibly his life for strangers. And somehow, wrapped in that torn wing, he felt more at peace than he had in years. He woke to the sound of engines. Marcus jerked upright, his hand automatically going to the plasma torch at his belt. The sun was rising, painting the canyon in shades of orange and gold. The baby dragons were still asleep, but their mother was alert, her head raised and tracking the sound. A ship descended from the morning sky, larger than the poacher vessel, corporate markings on its hull. Marcus's stomach sank. This was either rescue or trouble, and with dragons involved, probably trouble. The ship landed 50 meters away, sending up clouds of red dust. A boarding ramp extended and 3 figures emerged. 2 were armed security in corporate armor. The third was a woman in an expensive suit, her hair pulled back severely, her face cold and professional. Marcus recognized her. Lydia Torres, the sector overseer. His boss's boss's boss. She walked toward them with the confidence of someone who owned everything in sight and knew it. Marcus Chen, she called out, her voice cutting through the morning air. You've caused quite a problem. Marcus stood, positioning himself between Torres and the dragons. The babies were awake now, huddled against their mother, who watched the newcomers with eyes that blazed with distrust. I saved a life, Marcus said evenly. 3 lives. Torres stopped 10 feet away, her gaze taking in the scene. The destroyed shuttle, the burned poacher ship in the distance, the white dragon and her young. You destroyed company property. You engaged in unauthorized combat. You failed to report for extraction. Torres counted off on her fingers. And you made contact with an unregistered xenobiological entity without following proper protocols. I made contact with a person who was bleeding to death, Marcus shot back. Someone shot her down. Killed her for her hide. Was I supposed to just walk away? Yes. Torres said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. That's exactly what you were supposed to do. You're a salvage tech, Chen, not a xenobiologist or a first contact specialist. This situation should have been reported and handled by professionals. She would have died. That's not your concern. Marcus felt anger burning in his chest, hot and righteous. Then whose concern is it? Who cares if an intelligent being dies alone on a dead rock? Who's responsible for that? Torres's expression didn't change. The company has procedures for these situations. Legal procedures. Diplomatic procedures. You've violated dozens of protocols and exposed the company to significant liability. Liability? Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. There's an intelligent species here and you're worried about liability? I'm worried about the lawsuits we'll face when the Galactic Council discovers we had an employee interfere with a situation involving an unknown species. I'm worried about the fines, the sanctions, the possibility that your actions could be construed as humanity, claiming these creatures under salvage rights, which would violate 6 different treaties. Marcus opened his mouth to argue, but Torres held up a hand. However, she continued, her voice softening slightly, the fact remains that you did save them, and that poacher you killed? His ship's logs show he was wanted in 4 systems for hunting protected species. You actually did everyone a favor by taking him out? Marcus blinked, surprised by the turn in the conversation. Torres looked past him to the dragon. She's beautiful. I've never seen anything like her. White scales, pink eyes. Definitely intelligent based on the reports. She protected her young, fought a ship. That shows reasoning and emotional capacity. She's a person, Marcus said firmly. Perhaps. Torres turned her cold gaze back to him, which makes this situation even more complicated. If she's sapient, she falls under Galactic Council protection, which means we need to contact them immediately, which means investigations, audits, and months of bureaucracy, while they determine what to do with her and her offspring. Marcus's heart sank. He had saved them from one hunter only to deliver them to bureaucrats who would poke and prod and classify them. Torres seemed to read his expression. Or, she said slowly, we could handle this quietly. The poacher is dead. His ship destroyed. There are no other witnesses except my security team, who work for me. We could simply not report this incident at all. Marcus stared at her, trying to understand. Why would you do that? Torres walked closer, lowering her voice. Because 15 years ago I was a salvage tech just like you. I found a colony of sentient coral organisms on a water world. Beautiful, intelligent, singing to each other across kilometers. I reported it by the book. The council came in, declared it a protected zone, and then a corporate cartel bribed the right officials to reclassify it as limited intelligence. They harvested every last coral for luxury goods. She looked at the dragon with something almost like sympathy. I learned that sometimes the rules exist to protect the powerful, not the innocent. So I'm giving you a choice, Chen. We report this properly, follow all procedures, and hope the system works. Or we say nothing and you're worried about liability. I'm worried about the lawsuits we'll face when the Galactic Council discovers we had an employee interfere with a situation involving an unknown species. I'm worried about the fines, the sanctions, the possibility that your actions could be construed as humanity, claiming these creatures under salvage rights, which would violate 6 different treaties. Marcus opened his mouth to argue, but Torres held up a hand. However, she continued, her voice softening slightly, the fact remains that you did save them, and that poacher you killed, his ship's logs show he was wanted in 4 systems for hunting protected species. You actually did everyone a favor by taking him out. Marcus blinked, surprised by the turn in the conversation. Torres looked past him to the dragon. She's beautiful. I've never seen anything like her. White scales, pink eyes. Definitely intelligent based on the reports. She protected her young, fought a ship. That shows reasoning and emotional capacity. She's a person, Marcus said firmly. Perhaps, Torres turned her cold gaze back to him, which makes this situation even more complicated. If she's sapient, she falls under Galactic Council protection, which means we need to contact them immediately, which means investigations, audits, and months of bureaucracy while they determine what to do with her and her offspring. Marcus's heart sank. He had saved them from one hunter only to deliver them to bureaucrats who would poke and prod and classify them. Torres seemed to read his expression. Or, she said slowly, we could handle this quietly. The poacher is dead. His ship destroyed. There are no other witnesses except my security team who work for me. We could simply not report this incident at all. Marcus stared at her, trying to understand. Why would you do that? Torres walked closer, lowering her voice. Because 15 years ago, I was a salvage tech just like you. I found a colony of sentient coral organisms on a water world. Beautiful, intelligent, singing to each other across kilometers. I reported it by the book. The council came in, declared it a protected zone, and then a corporate cartel bribed the right officials to reclassify it as limited intelligence. They harvested every last coral for luxury goods. She looked at the dragon with something almost like sympathy. I learned that sometimes the rules exist to protect the powerful, not the innocent. So I'm giving you a choice, Chen. We report this properly, follow all procedures, and hope the system works. Or we say nothing, and you figure out what to do with your new friends on your own. Marcus looked at the dragon. She was watching the conversation intently, clearly understanding that her fate was being decided. Her babies huddled close to her, vulnerable and trusting. If I don't report it, Marcus said slowly, what happens to me? Torres smiled thinly. You get fired for destroying company property and failing to complete your assignment. You'll have to pay for the shuttle, which will take about 5 years of wages. You'll be blacklisted from corporate work. So you'll have to find employment in the independent sectors. It'll be hard, but you're resourceful. She gestured to the dragon. And you'll have to figure out how to transport 3 large reptilian aliens without anyone asking questions. Find them a safe place. Maybe even find where they came from and take them home. And if I do report it, they get classified, studied, and warehoused. Best case scenario, they end up in a sanctuary somewhere, never free again. Worst case, they disappear into someone's private collection. The poacher was right about one thing. Albino dragons would be worth a fortune to the right buyer. Marcus didn't hesitate. I'll take them. Torres nodded as if she had expected that answer. Then I was never here. My security team will help you load them into my ship. We'll drop you at the nearest independent station. After that, you're on your own. Why are you helping me? Torres was quiet for a moment. 'Cause I couldn't save the coral, but maybe I can save this. She turned to leave, then paused. Chen, good luck. You're going to need it. The independent station Freeport 7 was exactly the kind of place where nobody asked too many questions. Built from scavenged ship parts and abandoned colonial modules, it orbited a gas giant in unclaimed space. Marcus had been here before years ago, when he had first started salvage work and couldn't afford the fees at corporate stations. Torres's ship had dropped them off with minimal fanfare. Marcus had used his last credits to rent a cargo bay large enough for the dragons, and now he stood watching the mother dragon slowly explore their new temporary home. Her wings were healing, the tissue regenerator having done more good than he had hoped, but she still couldn't fly. The babies, however, were already attempting short gliding hops from crate to crate, their excited chirps echoing off the metal walls. Marcus's account balance showed negative numbers in angry red. He owed the company for the shuttle. His few possessions fit in a single duffel bag. He was unemployed, essentially broke and responsible for 3 dragons that everyone in the galaxy would want to capture or kill. He should have been terrified. Instead, he felt oddly free. Okay, Marcus said to the mother dragon who had settled on a large crate and was watching him with those intelligent pink eyes. We need a plan. You need medical care, proper food, and eventually a way home. I need money to make all that happen. So first things first, I need a job. The dragon tilted her head, and Marcus was increasingly certain she understood far more than she could express. She made a series of sounds, and he caught something that sounded like agreement. Marcus pulled out his personal data pad, one of the few pieces of equipment that had survived the shuttle crash. He scrolled through job listings on the station network. Most required credentials he didn't have anymore, or connections to groups he didn't trust. But there near the bottom, one caught his eye. Independent salvage crew needed. Dangerous work, hazard pay, no questions asked. Captain Yuki Tanaka. Marcus knew that name. Tanaka ran one of the most successful independent salvage operations in the sector. She was tough, fair, and had a reputation for taking on jobs everyone else refused. He sent her a message request, not expecting much. She replied in 30 seconds, Cargo Bay 7. Now. Marcus looked at the dragons. I'll be back. Stay quiet, stay hidden. He knew they couldn't understand his words, but the mother dragon rumbled in a way that sounded reassuring. She would watch over her babies. Cargo Bay 7 was 3 levels up and smelled like engine grease and recycled air. A woman stood beside a compact salvage ship, arms crossed, her gray-streaked black hair pulled into a ponytail. She looked Marcus up and down with sharp eyes that missed nothing. You're Chen. Heard you got fired from corporate. News travels fast. Always does on stations like this. Tanaka walked around him, evaluating. Also heard you destroyed a pirate ship with a mining shuttle and saved some endangered aliens. That true? Marcus hesitated. Mostly. See, I like mostly. Tanaka grinned. Means you can think on your feet and you're not a corporate drone anymore. I need someone who can handle complicated salvage operations. Things that aren't strictly legal but aren't exactly illegal either. Pay is decent. Work is constant. Hours are terrible. I need to bring some baggage. We all have baggage, Chen. Mine is 3 dragons hiding in a cargo bay that half the galaxy would kill to possess. Tanaka blinked. That was apparently not the answer she had expected. Then she laughed, a genuine sound of delight. You're serious, completely, dragons. Real ones. Albino reptilian aliens with wings and intelligent eyes. Mother and 2 babies. Someone shot them down. I couldn't leave them. Tanaka rubbed her face, but she was still smiling. You know what? Why not? Galaxy's weird enough. But here's the deal. They stay hidden. If anyone finds out, it puts my whole crew at risk. Can you guarantee they'll stay quiet? The mother understands danger. She'll keep the baby safe. Then welcome aboard, Chen. We leave tomorrow for a derelict station salvage job. Pay is 2,000 credits, your share. That enough to feed dragons? It's a start. They shook hands and Marcus felt hope for the first time in days. Back in the cargo bay, Marcus found the baby dragons playing a game that looked like tag, chasing each other in circles while their mother watched with what could only be described as amusement. When Marcus entered, all three turned to look at him. Got a job, Marcus announced. We're going to be okay. The mother dragon stood and walked toward him, her movement stronger now. She stopped in front of him, her massive head level with his chest. Then she did something that took Marcus completely by surprise. She bowed. It was a deliberate, formal gesture. Her head lowered, her eyes closed, her whole body expressing gratitude and respect. The two babies scrambled over and copied their mother, their tiny heads bobbing in mimicry. Marcus felt his throat tighten. He reached out and placed his hand on the mother dragon's head between her horns. You don't need to bow to me. We're friends, family even. She lifted her head and made a sound complex and musical. Then she touched her nose to his forehead, gentle as a whisper. The babies chirped and piled onto Marcus's legs, nearly knocking him over. He laughed and sat down, letting them climb on him. Tiny settled in his lap while Notch perched on his shoulder, tiny claws gripping his jacket. The mother dragon curled around all of them, creating a protective circle. For a moment, sitting there surrounded by impossible creatures on a station at the edge of nowhere, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt like he belonged. The next morning, Marcus was helping load cargo onto Tanaka's ship when he noticed something. One of the station workers was watching him too closely, speaking quietly into a comm unit. Marcus's instincts, honed by years of working in dangerous places, screamed warning. He finished loading and hurried back to the cargo bay. Inside, he found the mother dragon alert, her wings half spread, the babies hidden behind her. She had sensed it too. We might have a problem, Marcus said. Before the dragon could respond, the cargo bay door burst open. 4 figures entered, all armed, all moving with the confidence of experienced hunters. Marcus recognized the lead figure, a Zelian, its blue carapace scarred from many fights, its multiple eyes gleaming with predatory interest. Marcus Chen. The Zelian's translator rendered its clicks and whistles into flat standard. You have something valuable. Hand over the dragons and we won't hurt you. Not happening. Marcus positioned himself between the hunters and the dragons. His plasma torch was in his hand, though he knew it would be useless against military weapons. Human fool. There's a bounty on albino dragons, 5 million credits alive. The one who escaped the poacher? That's her. We've been tracking her for weeks. 5 million credits. Marcus's mind reeled. That explained so much. The mother dragon hadn't just been running from one poacher. She was running from an entire hunting network. She's a person, Marcus said, not a bounty. She's property under Zelian law. Her species was classified decades ago. Intelligent, yes, but not sapient enough for protection. Perfect for exotic collections. Marcus felt rage burning through him. This was what Torres had been trying to prevent. The system wasn't designed to protect the innocent. It was designed to enable the powerful. The mother dragon roared, a sound that shook the cargo bay. Her injuries were still healing, but her fury was absolute. She wouldn't go quietly. She would fight and she would die fighting, unless Marcus stopped this. Wait, Marcus said.
Wait, let's negotiate.
5 million credits. That's a lot of money. But what if I could offer you something worth more? The Zelian's eyes focused on him with interest. You have nothing we want, human. I have information. The mother dragon here, she's not alone. There's an entire colony where she came from. Hundreds of dragons, maybe thousands. All albino, all valuable. The mother dragon made a sound of distress, but Marcus didn't look at her. He couldn't. If she saw the lie in his eyes, the hunters might notice. You're lying, the Zelian said, but its voice held uncertainty. Am I? Why else would she be traveling with babies? She was scouting, looking for a new territory. Her colony sent her. I can give you the coordinates. You let us go. You get information worth hundreds of millions of credits. The hunters consulted in rapid clicks and whistles. Marcus's heart pounded. He was betting everything on human reputation, on the fact that humanity was known for being clever, for seeing opportunities, for making deals that benefited everyone. The Zellion turned back. Coordinates now. Marcus pulled out his datapad, his hands steady despite his terror. He input coordinates he had memorized years ago. A nebula region, dense and difficult to navigate, where long-range scans showed massive mineral deposits but nothing else. It would take the hunters months to search it and find nothing, but by then Marcus and the dragons would be long gone. He transmitted the data. The Zellion checked it, conferred with its team. Then, to Marcus's relief, they lowered their weapons. "If you're lying, human, we will find you, and we will take our frustration out slowly." "I'm not lying." Marcus lied smoothly. "There's a fortune out there. Go claim it." The hunters left. Marcus waited until the cargo bay door sealed, then collapsed against a crate, shaking. The mother dragon approached slowly. She looked at him with eyes that held understanding. She knew what he had done. She knew he had lied, had put himself at risk to protect them. She lowered her. Tanaka's ship, the Wandering Star, was a beautiful, mismatched thing. Parts from a dozen different vessels welded together, upgraded engines that purred like content cats, and enough hidden compartments to make customs inspectors weep. Marcus helped load the dragons into the largest cargo hold, one that Tanaka assured him had proper life support and privacy. "We're heading to the Margrave sector," Tanaka explained as they prepped for departure. Old corporate war left a station abandoned 30 years ago. Nobody's touched it because it's in disputed space. 3 different governments claim it, so everyone's too scared to salvage it. But there's valuable tech inside. Sounds dangerous. That's why it pays well. Tanaka grinned. "We go in quiet, grab what we can, get out before anyone notices. Simple." Marcus had learned that nothing was ever simple. The journey took 4 days through hyperspace. Marcus spent most of the time in the cargo hold with the dragons. The mother's wings were healing remarkably well, the torn membranes knitting together faster than should be possible. She was regaining strength daily, and her babies were growing at an alarming rate. Tiny was already twice the size she had been on the mining station, and Notch's wings were developing the same translucent beauty as his mother's. During the long hours, Marcus tried teaching them standard. He would point at objects and say the words: water, food, ship, danger. The mother dragon watched intently, and after the second day, she began making sounds that approximated the words. It wasn't perfect, but it was communication. She also tried teaching Marcus her language, complex vocalizations that involved throat resonance Marcus couldn't quite replicate. But he learned. Slowly, painfully, he learned. On the 3rd day, she managed to say his name. "Marcus." It came out as a rumbling purr, but it was definitely his name. Marcus felt tears in his eyes. "Yes, Marcus, and you are?" She made a sound beautiful and complex. Marcus couldn't reproduce it, but it sounded like wind through crystal chimes. He simplified it in his mind to aria, and she seemed to accept this when he said it, loud. The babies were Sky and Cloud, names he chose because they seemed appropriate for creatures who would one day soar. They arrived at the abandoned station to find it exactly as advertised, a massive ring structure floating in the darkness, its lights long dead, its corridors silent. Tanaka's crew of 6 prepared the salvage operation with practiced efficiency. "Chen, you're with me," Tanaka ordered. "We're hitting the tech storage bays. Should be old military equipment, computer cores, weapons systems, anything we can carry." Marcus hesitated. "The dragons will be fine for a few hours. Suki's staying with the ship. She's good people. Nothing will happen to them." Suki, a quiet woman with cybernetic eyes, gave Marcus a reassuring nod. "I've got sensors watching the whole sector. Anything comes close, I'll know." Marcus grabbed his equipment and followed Tanaka onto the station. It was eerie, walking through corridors where people had once lived. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. Emergency lighting flickered occasionally, powered by decades-old batteries that refused to die. "War happened here," Tanaka said quietly as they moved deeper. "Corporate dispute over mining rights. Both sides brought in mercs. Station was caught in the crossfire. Everyone evacuated, but the fighting was so intense nobody ever came back. They found the tech storage bays on level 15. The doors had been sealed, which was good news. It meant looters hadn't gotten here first. Marcus used his plasma torch to cut through the lock and the door groaned open. Inside was a treasure trove. Weapon systems, power cores, computer equipment from an era when processing power was expensive. On today's market, This was worth hundreds of thousands of credits. They worked quickly, loading everything portable onto anti-grav sleds. Marcus was securing a particularly valuable quantum computer core when his comm crackled. "Chen, Tanaka, we've got a problem." Suki's voice was tight with tension. 3 ships just dropped out of hyperspace. Military configuration. "They're hailing us," Tanaka cursed. "Which government?" "None I recognize." "Wait, they're broadcasting." "Oh no." "What?" "It's the Zelian hunters." The ones Chen tricked. "They tracked us." Marcus's blood ran cold. They had found him. Despite the false coordinates, despite the head start, they had found him. "Suki, prep the ship for immediate departure," Tanaka ordered. "Chen, with me." "We're going back now." They ran. The salvage could wait. Survival couldn't. They reached the docking port to find Suki frantically working the controls. "They're demanding we hand over the dragons or they'll destroy the ship. They've got us targeted. Military-grade weapons. We can't outrun them." Through the viewport, Marcus could see the 3 hunter ships positioning themselves in a triangle formation, cutting off all escape routes. The lead ship was massive, a purpose-built hunting vessel bristling with weapons. "Options?" Tanaka demanded. "We fight, we die. We run, we die. We surrender the dragons." Suki trailed off, looking at Marcus. "No." Marcus said it with absolute certainty. "We don't surrender them. Then what?" Tanaka's voice was sharp with frustration. "I'm good, Chen. But I can't fight 3 military ships with a salvage vessel." Marcus's mind raced. 3 ships, military weapons, no way to fight, no way to run. They needed a miracle, or they needed something the hunters wouldn't expect. "The station," Marcus said suddenly. It was a military installation. "There must be defenses." "Offline for 30 years, Suki pointed out. "Maybe. But what if we could bring them online? Even partially?" Tanaka stared at him. "That's insane. We don't have access codes. We don't have power. We have the computer cores we just salvaged. Old military tech. What if the access codes are in there?" It was a desperate plan. Probably impossible. But it was all they had. Tanaka made a decision. "Suki, stall them. Tell them we're negotiating terms. Chen, show me these computer cores." They dragged the quantum core back onto the station, into a control room that still had minimal power. Marcus worked faster than he ever had, connecting the old core to the station's systems, praying that 3 decades of vacuum hadn't destroyed the data. The core flickered to life. Data scrolled across ancient displays. Marcus's hands flew over the controls, searching. There. Access codes. Defensive protocols. Weapon systems. Got it. Marcus shouted. The station's particle cannons. 12 of them. They're low on power, but they're functional. Tanaka was already at the weapons console. "Targeting systems or slag. Manual control only. Can you do it?" She grinned, fierce and dangerous. "Just watch me." The station shuddered as ancient systems came to life. Power flowed through long, dormant conduits. 12 particle cannons designed to defend against warships began tracking the hunter vessels. The Zelian's voice came over the comm, confused. "What are you doing, humans?" Tanaka's response was to fire. The first cannon shot lit up the darkness like a newborn star. It caught the leftmost hunter ship across its bow, shearing through shields and armor. The ship reeled, trailing atmosphere and debris. The other 2 hunters opened fire on the station, but their weapons were designed for ship combat, not station assault. The station's massive bulk absorbed the hits, ancient armor plating doing its job. Tanaka fired again. And again. She walked the particle cannon fire across the hunter formation, forcing them to scatter. One ship tried to dive beneath the station's firing arc. Tanaka anticipated it, leading her shot perfectly. The particle beam caught the ship's engines. It exploded in a flash of white light. 2 down. 1 to go. The remaining Zelian ship, the largest one, pulled back and began charging its main weapon. A hunter's last resort, a planet cracker missile designed to blast through shields and hulls. "They're going for your ship," Marcus warned. "I know." Tanaka's fingers danced over controls. "Just need a clean shot," the Zelian fired. The missile streaked toward the wandering star, a dart of death moving at impossible speed. Tanaka fired all 12 cannons simultaneously. The convergent beams caught the Zelian ship dead center. Shields flared, buckled, failed. The ship's hull began to glow, then melt, then vaporize. The Zelian had time for one scream before his ship became a cloud of superheated gas. Tanaka had already switched targets to the missile. She hit it with 3 cannons. It detonated harmlessly between the station and the ship, a brief new sun in the darkness. Silence. Marcus realized he had been holding his breath. He let it out slowly. That, Tanaka said, was the stupidest, most brilliant thing I've ever seen. We just took out 3 hunter ships with a station that's been dead for 30 years. Suki's voice came over the comm, shaking with either fear or excitement. Guys, we've got a bigger problem. Those explosions, they've attracted attention. A lot of attention. I'm reading 6 more ships inbound, and these ones are broadcasting as Galactic Council Authority vessels. Marcus and Tanaka exchanged looks. They had won the battle but might have just created an even bigger problem. They rushed back to the ship. In the cargo hold, Arya was agitated. Her wings spread, her babies pressed against her sides. She had heard the fighting and knew something was wrong. It's okay, Marcus said, though he wasn't sure it was. We're okay. But we need to make a decision. Tanaka entered behind him. Council ships will be here in 20 minutes. They'll want to know what happened. They'll scan my ship. They'll find the dragons. Then we don't let them scan. Marcus turned to Arya. Can you fly? Arya? Can you fly? Are your wings strong enough? Arya extended her wings fully, testing them. They were still healing. The membrane slightly thin in places, but she managed to stay aloft for several seconds before settling back down. It wasn't perfect, but it might be enough. There's a debris field 2 systems over, Tanaka said slowly. Dense, difficult to navigate, but perfect for hiding. If you can get there before the council arrives, you might have a chance. In what? Marcus asked. We don't have a ship. You do now. Tanaka pulled out a data chip. I've got a small cargo runner docked on the far side of the station. Old, temperamental, but fast. It's yours. Consider it payment for the insane salvage operation you just pulled off. Marcus stared at her. You're just giving me a ship? I'm giving 3 dragons and 1 stubborn human a chance at survival. Tanaka pressed the chip into his hand. The ship's called Star Dancer. She'll get you where you need to go. After that, you're on your own. I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me. Just survive. And Chen? Tanaka's expression was serious. Find out where these dragons came from. Take them home. They deserve that much. Marcus nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. 15 minutes later, Marcus was piloting the Star Dancer away from the station. Arya and her babies secured in the small cargo bay. The ship was old. Tanaka hadn't lied about that, but it responded well to his commands. Behind them, the council ships arrived at the station. By the time they finished investigating the wreckage and questioning Tanaka, Marcus and the dragons would be long gone, hidden in a debris field where sensors were useless. As they jumped to hyperspace, Marcus looked back at the cargo bay feed. Arya was watching the stars blur past, her babies asleep against her sides. Her pink eyes reflected the light, making them glow like distant rubies. She had trusted him. Against all odds, despite every reason not to, she had trusted a human she barely knew, and Marcus had moved heaven and earth to prove that trust wasn't misplaced. Now came the hard part, finding where Arya and her children came from, taking them home, and somehow doing it while half the galaxy wanted to capture them. But as Marcus plotted their course deeper into uncharted space, he found himself smiling. He had spent 15 years salvaging other people's abandoned dreams. Maybe it was time to build something new instead. The debris field was exactly as dangerous as promised. Marcus piloted the Star Dancer through tumbling wreckage from a dozen destroyed ships, relying on manual controls because the sensors were overwhelmed by all the metal. One wrong move and they would become part of the debris themselves, but it was safe. Hidden. The perfect place to catch their breath and figure out their next move. Marcus found a relatively stable pocket between 2 massive hull sections and powered down to minimal systems. In the cargo bay, Arya watched him work with patient understanding. The babies, now nearly the size of ponies, were playing with a piece of salvaged cable they had found interesting. We need to figure out where you're from, Marcus said to Arya. He had a star chart displayed on his datapad. Can you show me? Point to anything familiar? Arya studied the chart intently. Her eyes moved across the constellations, searching. Then she made a frustrated sound and shook her head. The chart was showing this sector. She needed a bigger picture. Marcus expanded the view, showing a larger portion of the galaxy. Arya leaned closer, her massive head next to his as she studied the display. Then carefully she extended one claw and tapped a region far to the galactic east, beyond the major trade routes, in an area marked as unexplored. There? Marcus zoomed in. The region showed no inhabited systems, no stations, nothing but distant stars that nobody had bothered to visit. That's 3 months of travel from here. Maybe more, Arya rumbled, a sound of affirmation and longing. Home. Her home was there. Marcus did some calculations. They had enough fuel for maybe a month of travel if they were careful. The Star Dancer wasn't designed for long-range exploration. They would need to stop for supplies, which meant exposing themselves to potential hunters, unless they could find another way. Marcus spent the next 3 days searching databases, calling in favors from old contacts and piecing together rumors. What he found was both encouraging and terrifying. There were stories, old ones passed between long-range explorers and deep space miners. Tales of a region where ships disappeared, where sensors went haywire, where explorers reported seeing massive white shapes moving through the darkness between stars. Most dismissed them as ghost stories. Space madness, sensor glitches. But what if they weren't? What if those white shapes were dragons? Marcus found references to 3 expeditions that had ventured into that region. 2 never returned. The third came back with most of their crew dead and wild stories about crystal worlds protected by creatures of legend. The survivors were dismissed as delusional, but Marcus believed them. Because he was living with those creatures of legend, the problem was getting there. 3 months of travel required resources they didn't have. Fuel, food, medical supplies, and every station they stopped at was a risk. The hunters were looking for them. The council was looking for them. Even bounty hunters had started posting rewards for information. Marcus was contemplating their limited options when Arya suddenly became agitated. She stood, wings half spread, head turned toward the cargo bay door. Sky and Cloud immediately moved behind their mother, sensing her alarm. Marcus checked the sensors. Nothing. The debris field was as empty as it had been for days. Then he heard it, a faint tapping sound. Something hitting the hull. Too rhythmic to be debris. Someone was docking with them. Marcus grabbed his plasma torch and moved toward the airlock. Through the small viewport, he saw a tiny maintenance pod attached to his hull. A single occupant was working the emergency override. The airlock opened with a hiss. Marcus raised his torch, ready to defend his ship. A figure tumbled through, pulling off their helmet. Long dark hair spilled out, and Marcus found himself staring at a young woman, maybe 25, with eyes that held a fierce intelligence. "Don't shoot," she said quickly, hands raised. "I'm not here to hurt you." "I'm here to help. Who are you?" Marcus demanded. "Dr. Kira Osman, xenobiologist. I've been tracking you since the station fight." She saw Marcus tense and spoke faster. "Not to capture the dragons, to protect them. I know what they are. I know where they're from, and I know you're trying to take them home." Marcus didn't lower the torch. "How do you know any of that?" "Because I was part of the expedition that found their world 15 years ago. The one everyone said was crazy." Kira's voice was intense, passionate. "We found them, Marcus. Hundreds of dragons. A civilization. They had cities made of crystal. Technology we couldn't understand, culture that predated human spaceflight. They were beautiful. And we were ordered to keep it secret. Why? Because the corporate backers of the expedition wanted to exploit them. Turn their world into a mining operation. The dragons' cities were built around massive deposits of rare elements. Worth trillions." Kira's expression darkened. "We refused. The corporation tried to force us. There was a fight. People died. The dragon's home was damaged. Some of them escaped, scattered across the galaxy. Arya was probably one of them." Marcus lowered the torch slowly. "If you know where they're from, why didn't you go back?" "I tried. The corporation made sure I was blacklisted, discredited. Nobody would fund an expedition led by a delusional scientist. I've spent 15 years trying to find a way back." She looked past Marcus toward the cargo bay where Arya was visible. "Then I heard about a salvage tech who took on hunters to protect an albino dragon. I knew it had to be one of them. One of the refugees." Arya had moved to the doorway, her massive form filling the frame. She stared at Kira with intense focus. Then she made a sound, complex and questioning. Kira's eyes widened. "You remember me?" She spoke directly to Arya, her voice gentle. "I was there when your world was attacked. I tried to help. I'm so sorry we failed you. To Marcus's surprise, Arya approached Kira slowly and touched her nose to the woman's forehead. The same gesture she had given Marcus. Recognition, forgiveness, trust. She remembers you, Marcus said softly. The dragons never forget. Kira turned back to Marcus. I can help you. I have the coordinates to their world. The real ones, not corporate sanitized data. I know the safe routes through the stellar anomalies that protect their system. But I need your ship. Mine is falling apart. Marcus studied her carefully. What do you get out of this? A chance to make things right. To return at least one dragon home. To maybe warn them that humans are still hunting them. Kira's voice was quiet but fierce. I've lived with guilt for 15 years, Marcus. Let me do something good for once. Marcus made a decision based on intuition and desperation. Okay, but we have another problem. We don't have enough fuel or supplies for a 3-month journey. We don't need 3 months. Kira pulled out her own datapad, displaying a star chart. There's a shortcut through a gravity well network. Dangerous, barely charted, but it cuts travel time to 3 weeks. I've been mapping it for years. Why is it dangerous? Because ships that enter don't always come out. The gravity fluctuations are intense. One wrong calculation and we get torn apart. Marcus looked at Arya. She was watching the conversation with obvious understanding. Sky and Cloud had emerged from the cargo bay, curious about the new human. What do you think? Marcus asked the dragon. Can we trust her? Arya made a sound that Marcus had learned meant agreement. Then she did something she had never done before. She bowed to Kira, the same formal gesture she had given Marcus. The babies immediately copied their mother. Kira's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. I won't let you down. The next 2 weeks were the most intense of Marcus's life. Kira proved to be an excellent navigator, her calculations precise and reliable. The gravity well network was terrifying. Regions where space itself seemed to twist and reality became negotiable. But Kira guided them through with steady confidence. During the journey, Kira taught Marcus more about the dragons. Their species was ancient, she explained. They had been traveling between stars when humans were still in caves. Their technology was biological, grown rather than built. Their cities were living structures, responsive and intelligent. They're not just intelligent, Kira said one evening as they watched Arya teaching her children to form complex sounds. They're beyond us in ways we can barely comprehend. They see time differently, communicate in harmonics that include emotions and abstract concepts. What we interpret as roars and chirps is actually poetry. Why didn't they fight back when the corporation attacked? They did in their way. But dragons are peaceful. Violence is antithetical to their culture. They tried negotiation, then isolation. When neither worked, some fled to protect their young. Kira watched Arya with sad eyes. Arya probably left to lead hunters away from her colony. A sacrifice that explained so much. The way Arya had fought desperately to protect her babies even when dying. The way she had trusted Marcus despite every reason not to. She was a mother doing whatever it took to keep her children safe. On the 16th day, they emerged from the gravity wells into a system that took Marcus's breath away. A binary star system. Both suns burning with unusual crystalline light. 7 planets orbited in complex patterns, and one of them glowed. It actually glowed, visible even from this distance. White and pink and pearl like an opal floating in space. That's it, Kira whispered. That's their home. The crystal world. Arya made a sound Marcus had never heard before. Pure joy, pure hope. She pressed against the viewport, her wings fully spread, her whole body trembling with emotion. Sky and Cloud were chirping excitedly, sensing their mother's happiness. We're taking you home, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. We actually made it. As they approached the planet, Marcus's sensors began detecting something impossible. Structures in orbit. Not stations. Something else. They looked like crystalline flowers, huge and delicate, floating in perfect formations. The dragons build in space too, Kira explained. Those are nurseries for their young. Growing pods where the babies learn to fly in zero gravity. They were close enough now to see the planet's surface. Cities made of living crystal sprawled across continents. Towers that sang in the solar wind. Gardens that glowed with bioluminescence. And everywhere dragons. Hundreds of them. Thousands. White scales gleaming, wings catching the double sunlight, soaring between the crystal spires in graceful formations. Arya was crying. Marcus didn't know dragons could cry, but she was. Tears of crystal clarity rolled down her scaled cheeks as she saw her home again after so many years. We need to land carefully, Kira said. Let them know we come in peace. But before Marcus could begin landing procedures, the ship's comm crackled to life. A voice spoke in the dragon language, musical and complex. Then it switched to standard, accented but clear. Unknown vessel. You carry the lost mother, Arya of the Sky Choir. You carry her children saved from the hunters. You carry honored guests. Marcus exchanged shocked looks with Kira. You can speak standard? Many things have changed since the corporation's attack. We learned your language, learned your ways, to better protect ourselves. A pause. You are Marcus Chen, human of kindness. You are Kira Osman, human of guilt and redemption. You are both welcome. Bring Arya home. The comm went silent. A moment later, 3 dragons appeared alongside their ship, their massive forms dwarfing the Star Dancer. They weren't threatening. They were escorting. Marcus piloted down through atmosphere that shimmered like mother of pearl. The crystal spires grew larger, more magnificent. They landed in a plaza made of living stone that sang softly under the ship's weight. The airlock opened. Marcus and Kira stepped out first, blinking in the dual sunlight. Then Arya emerged and the plaza exploded with sound. Dragons of every size filled the air, their calls creating harmony so beautiful it brought tears to Marcus's eyes. Arya lifted her head and sang. A song of loss and return, of pain and healing, of gratitude and love. Sky and cloud joined their voices with hers, creating a chorus that resonated through the crystal city. Dragons began landing, crowding the plaza. They approached Arya, touching her gently, welcoming her home. An especially large dragon, silver-white with scars that spoke of age and wisdom, came forward. It touched Arya's head, then turned to Marcus. When it spoke, Marcus heard the voice from the comm. You saved her. You saved the lost mother and her children when you could have walked away. You risked everything for strangers. Marcus didn't know what to say. She needed help. I couldn't leave her. This is why we still believe in humanity, despite the hunters, despite the corporations, because some humans like you choose compassion over profit. The elder dragon lowered its massive head. We are in your debt, Marcus Chen. Marcus felt tears on his cheeks. No debt. She's family now. Arya approached, her children flanking her. She looked healthier than Marcus had ever seen her, her scales gleaming, her wings fully healed. She lowered her head and Marcus placed his hand on her snout one final time. You're home, he whispered. You're safe. Arya made a sound, soft and filled with emotion. Then she lifted her head and looked at him with those remarkable pink eyes, and Marcus understood. This wasn't goodbye. This was see you again.